I'll be recapping a Chinese mystery drama called Reset. A college girl wakes up with a startle. The boy next to her sees she's sweating and kindly offers her a tissue, but instead she grabs his hand and loudly calls him a pervert. She demands to be let off the bus, but the driver says it's illegal to halt at an undesignated stop. She starts begging, and after the other passengers join in, the driver finally stops. As she gets out, she drags the accused boy with her. After the bus leaves, she breathes a sigh of relief, apologizes to the boy and leaves. The confused boy calls a taxi and leaves. Meanwhile, the girl walks down the road when she hears a loud noise behind her, and as she's distracted she's hit by a motorcycle and passes out. When she wakes up, she's in the hospital. She sees the boy she accused being wheeled in covered in blood. When the police look at the footage, they see the girl, now identified as Shirqing, alighting at undesignated spot, and they become suspicious. The police go to the hospital to question Shirqing. At first she can't remember, but after seeing the footage she remembers everything. It makes her throw up, and the captain detective grabs a bottle of water for her. He tries unscrewing with his right hand but changes to his left. Captain tells the others to leave to make Shirqing be at ease. Then she starts her story. She boarded bus 45 and fell asleep immediately. She was awakened by an old ringtone and a second later an explosion. When she opened her eyes again she thought it was just a dream until she clearly saw the explosion this time. The third and fourth time Shirqing tried to get out of the bus forcibly but failed. The fifth time she said she was sick and the driver still didn't stop. But this time she witnessed how the bus crashed into the tanker and exploded. Shirqing accurately describes the crush scene, which shocks the captain since she's been in the hospital without any means of communication. Shirqing continues to the sixth time waking. It is the only one that she successfully got out the bus, and also the current one. Just then the captain gets news that the accused boy, identified as Hyun, is dying. Episode 1 ends with Hyun dying and waking up in the bus thinking it's just a nightmare until he sees Shirqing sleeping beside him. Episode 2 starts with what happened following Hyun taking the taxi after being dragged out the bus. Unfortunately, his taxi was behind the bus and he was caught in the explosion. Despite not dying immediately, he was severely burned. Currently when he wakes up, he sees Shirqing and remembers the explosion. Shirqing notices he may have joined the loop after seeing him frantic. He impulsively goes to the driver to make him stop, but then the explosion happens. The next few times he tries again but fails, as Shirqing watches him do exactly what she already did. Shirqing finally manages to calm him down and explains to him everything she knows so far. They figure he might have joined the loop after she dragged him out the last time. This new awakening, they decide instead of trying to get out, they avoid the tragic collision. They succeed, and for the first time they go beyond the crossroad. They relax since the explosion cycle can finally end. Just then they hear the old ringtone and the bus explodes. When they wake up again they figure out that it was actually not a collision accident, but a bomb explosion. To get out they use the same pervert trick. Shirqing calls the police and tells them about the bomb. Not being able to answer some of their questions she hangs up and switches her phone. Unfortunately the police are late and the explosion happens again. Knowing that the police won't believe their loop story, they decide to keep their phones switched off. Then they go to the garden to analyze the situation. As they're talking, Hyun asks Shirqing why he is the one she pulled out the bus. Shirqing explains that it's because he was the only one who supported her all the time she reawakened. In light of Shirqing's suspicious call, the episode ends with the police locating them and setting off to detain them. The duo at the park try to make sense of the loop. They draw a chart and notice they reawaken a minute earlier in every loop. Finally the police find them and take them to the station. The two are detained and questioned separately. Hyun is questioned by impatient detective Jiang and he tells them about the loop. Undoubtedly no one believes him, and impatient detective is infuriated. Director Du is dissatisfied with impatient detective's violent temper and decides to implement drug test. Meanwhile, Shirqing is questioned by Captain. As he is questioning Shirqing, he is shocked when Shirqing calls him by his surname when he never told her that. Further questioning, Shirqing tells him about his weak right hand. At this point she has no choice but to retell the loop story, knowing they won't believe her. Later on the police regroup and no one buys their loop story. They also acknowledge that the duo has no motive from their background check. They continue with the interrogation without any progress. The drug test also comes back negative and they get updated that indeed explosive residue was found on the scene. This makes the duo's bomb claim true, but it also means now they're officially detained as prime suspects. They decide to seriously interrogate Hyun, who is psychologically defenseless. Meanwhile, Shurchin falls asleep in her interrogation room. The episode ends with Shurchin reawakening in the bus. Episode 4 begins with a flashback of how Captain got his weak hand. He got it when he protected impatient detective from being stabbed by a criminal. Currently, the duo reawakens before the last official stop before explosion. They also make a new discovery. As long as they fall asleep, they'll reawaken in the loop, just as it happened when they slept at the station. They have also confirmed from the police that there was indeed a bomb in the bus, so they take a new approach. Shurchin shouts to the driver that there's a bomb in the bus, and it immediately explodes. When they reawaken, they realize it must be one of the passengers, and the bomb has to be in a bag. They decide to figure it out themselves and so start analyzing. There are 7 passengers. They rule out Muscle Guy and Phone Guy since they have no bag. Then the old woman, since they've already seen her bag is filled with medicine in their previous loops. They remember that there has always been a suspicious man wearing a mask with a school bag in the last row. He would be boarding on the next stop. Also now they can alight at an official stop without raising suspicion. They do that and Shurchin immediately calls the police about the bomb. However, Hyun is hiding from the CCTV and discreetly tells Shurchin to inconspicuously follow him to a secluded place. At the park, they get into a disagreement. Hyun thinks Shurchin shouldn't immediately call the police but take some time to analyze it first. On the other hand, Shurchin thinks that if it's the last loop, then it's the passenger's last chance to live. This time round the police get to the bus in time. Impatient detective arrives first, gets into the bus and they tell the passengers to alight but leave their belongings. A farmer guy with a sack insists on taking his sack with him. The police notice this and tackle him, but then the bus explodes. At the park, Shurchin receives a call from the police. From their earlier dispute, Shurchin decides to go alone and Hyun lays low. Before separating, Shurchin begrudgingly gives Hyun her number. At the station, the police don't believe Shurchin's story. She feels guilty when she's informed about impatient detective's death. Just then she receives a call from Hyun. The thing is, she had told the police she doesn't know him. Shurchin cleverly shouts that they have broken up and not to contact her again. Hyun immediately understands and tells her everything will be fine after she sleeps. Being desperate to sleep, Hyun buys sleeping pills and whiskey and downs them. Shortly after, the police find him almost asleep. They load him up, and he ends up falling asleep in the police car. The duo reawakens in the bus, and Shurchin doesn't want to call the police again because the previous one caused impatient detective's death. They also patch up their disagreement. The duo makes a plan to first find the location of the bomb and they set their eyes on the masked guy. They start an argument with masked guy to give them an opportunity to check his bag, but he's fiercely protective of it despite getting an asthma attack. In the ensuing scuffle, the bus explodes, again. In their next reawakening, they realize they can just stop the masked guy before he boards the bus. They successfully tackle masked guy outside, and away from the CCTV they forcefully check his bag. Turns out it's only a cat, and he was very protective of his bag because pets aren't allowed inside the bus. After helping masked guy find his cat, the explosion happens as expected. Later on in a cat shop, masked guy learns about the explosion of bus 45, the one the 2 strangers prevented him boarding. Meanwhile, in another place, Shurchin thinks that now they have a new ally in the loop since they dragged masked guy out, just like she did Hyun. In an internet cafe, the duo realize they have limited information in the net, and so decide to gather much information as possible from the police the next time they go. In the meantime, they go to the passengers' memorial to gather information. In a live stream by one of the deceased passengers called Phone Guy, they notice Farmer Guy behind him looking nervous and they suspect him. Just then Masked Guy approaches them and asks them for more information or else he'll call the police. The duo yield and the episode ends with Masked Guy dragging them along to somewhere. Subscribe, like, comment, and share for more content like this. Bye.